You are walking down a busy street. Someone collapses 10 feet ahead of you. 50 people are around, and you assume someone else will help. Here's the strange part. The more people who are standing there, the less likely any single person is to act. That sounds backwards. It is backwards. And your brain does it anyway. You would like to believe you are the exception. You would like to believe that if you saw someone in danger, you would run toward them without hesitation. Most people believe that about themselves. Almost none of them are right. The real answer is far stranger than confidence. It has nothing to do with courage. It has everything to do with math. Your brain runs without asking you first. In March of 1964, a young woman named Kitty Genovese was murdered outside her apartment building in Queens, New York. The attack lasted more than 30 minutes. Newspapers reported that dozens of neighbors heard her cries and did nothing. That number was later disputed. The details were messier than the headlines, but the case caught the attention of two psychologists who wanted to understand something specific. Not why people are cruel. Why people who are not cruel still fail to act. Their names were John Darley and Bibb Latané, and what they discovered changed the way we understand human behavior in a crowd forever. Darley and Latané didn't believe the popular explanation at the time. The idea that city life made people numb, or cold, or morally broken. That felt too simple. So in 1968, they built an experiment to test something else entirely. They wanted to know if the number of witnesses itself could change whether a person helped. Not personality, not character, just head count. Here's what they did. They placed a participant alone in a room, wearing headphones, told they were part of a discussion about college life. Through the headphones, the participant heard other students talking. In reality, those voices were recordings. At some point, one of the recorded voices began to simulate a seizure, choking sounds, distress, a call for help that trailed off. Some participants believed they were the only person who could hear this. Others believed there was one other listener. Others believed there were 4 or 5. The results were almost too clean. When participants believed they were the only witness, 85% of them left the room to get help and did it fast. When participants believed 4 other people were also listening, that number dropped to 31%, fewer than 1 in 3. Think about that for a second. The emergency didn't change. The urgency didn't change. The only thing that changed was how many other people the participant believed were also listening. Darley and Latané gave this phenomenon a name: diffusion of responsibility. Your brain, standing in a crowd, quietly does a calculation. If 10 people can help, then your personal share of the responsibility feels like 10%. 10% doesn't feel like an emergency. It feels like someone else's job. Here's where it gets stranger. This isn't a flaw in your character. It isn't laziness or coldness or apathy. It's a wiring pattern that likely kept your ancestors alive. For most of human history, you didn't live in cities of strangers. You lived in small bands, usually under 150 people, where everyone knew everyone. In that world, waiting to see how others reacted to a threat wasn't weakness. It was efficient. If a predator appeared at the edge of camp, you didn't need every single person sprinting in 5 directions at once. You needed the group to read each other's reactions and coordinate a response together. Watching others first, for a split second, was a survival tool. Your brain still runs that ancient program. Except now, the camp is a subway platform of 1,000 strangers who will never coordinate anything. The wiring built for a 50-person tribe is trying to process a crowd it was never designed to read. There's a second ingredient at work too, and it's just as old. Anthropologists call it social referencing. Before you fully register an emergency, you glance, almost involuntarily, at the people around you. Are they alarmed? Are they calm? You use their expressions to calibrate your own response. It's the same reflex a toddler uses when they fall down and immediately look at their parent's face to decide whether to cry. Here's the problem in a crowd of strangers. Everyone is doing this exact same glance, at the exact same moment. Everyone is looking around for a cue. And because everyone is trying to look calm while secretly checking everyone else, the group ends up performing calmness at each other. Nobody wants to be the one who overreacts to a false alarm, so a room full of people who are each individually alarmed can produce a group that looks, from the outside, unbothered. Researchers call this pluralistic ignorance. Everyone is privately worried. Everyone assumes they're the only one. This is why solitary witnesses help so much faster than crowds. There's no one else's face to check, no ambiguity to resolve. Just you and the emergency in a room with no exits for the responsibility to hide in. Later researchers took this even further. Psychologist Bibb Latané, working again with colleagues in the 1970s, expanded the model into what's now called social impact theory. The idea is simple. Your sense of personal responsibility in a group doesn't just diffuse. It divides, almost like a math problem your nervous system solves without your permission. More witnesses, smaller slice, weaker pull to act. But there's a twist that most retellings of the Genovese case leave out entirely. Being in a crowd doesn't just reduce your instinct to help. It can also make you doubt your own perception of the emergency itself. If nobody else looks concerned, some part of your brain quietly revises its assessment. Maybe it's not actually that serious. Maybe I'm misreading this. That's not cowardice. That's your ancient calibration system built for small trusted groups, misfiring in a crowd of anonymous faces. So what breaks the pattern? Darley and Latané found something almost absurdly simple. Eye contact. Direct address. If a person in distress, or someone nearby, points at one specific individual and says, "You in the blue jacket, call an ambulance," the diffusion collapses instantly. The responsibility is no longer divided across a crowd. It has a name attached to it again. It has one person again, and that one person almost always acts. This single finding has quietly reshaped emergency training worldwide. CPR courses now teach people to assign roles directly instead of shouting generally for help. Someone, call 911. You, start compressions. Because a crowd will hesitate. A named individual rarely does. Think about what this means for your own life, far away from any emergency. Group chats where nobody responds to an important message because everyone assumes someone else will. Meetings where an obvious problem goes unspoken because nobody wants to be the first to say it out loud. Online, watching something troubling unfold in a comment section and scrolling past because thousands of other people are seeing the exact same thing you are. Diffusion of responsibility didn't stay behind in a 1968 laboratory. It lives in your inbox. It lives in your group projects. It lives in every crowd you've ever quietly assumed would handle things without you. Here's the reframe worth sitting with. The instinct to hang back isn't a personal failure of nerve. It's an ancient tool, built for a much smaller and more intimate world, now running inside a species that lives packed into cities of strangers. Your brain isn't broken. It's just using old software on new hardware. And there is a strange kind of relief in knowing this, because it means the fix isn't about becoming braver, or more moral, or somehow different from other people. It means the fix is about disrupting the ambiguity itself, naming someone, making eye contact, turning a crowd back into individuals, the way your ancestors' 50-person camp always was. So the next time you are one face in a crowd and something feels wrong, remember what the math is actually doing behind the scenes. It isn't measuring how much you care. It's just counting heads. And every single person in that crowd is running the exact same quiet calculation you are, waiting for someone else to go first. Tonight, you might be the only one watching. Tomorrow, you might be surrounded by 50. Either way, the choice was never really about the emergency in front of you. It was about whether you let the crowd think for you or whether you remembered that you were always the one it was pointing at.